Good afternoon everyone, DRBMiller here. How are you guys doing? Thanks very much for coming in and joining us for our Apex Legends broadcast. We've not been broadcasting during the last few days, Apex, and for everyone who's here, a regular on my channel, you'll know there's a reason for that. I was taking a break from it because it is a relentless battle royale game, and I've played it for 2 weeks in the trot every day, the whole day. I broke my record on streaming as well with Apex, 30 hours and 45 minutes, which was quite astonishing. I couldn't believe that myself. And, we've just gone back to Destiny, but obviously we are going to be doing Apex as well. Not as relentlessly as in the first 2 weeks after the game was launched, but, bit by bit, a couple of hours here and there in order to generate better scores, to level up, to polish up our shooting skills, to present to the world some of our teamwork, and everything else which is Apex related. As you know, Apex has been literally a sensation. It almost defeated Fortnite as the most popular online multiplayer game of today. It generated 25 million consecutive or registered gamers and subscribers within the first week, which was astonishing, beating Fortnite by 2.5 weeks. And even more so because Fortnite did have 10 million after 2.5 weeks, whilst Apex had already 25 within 7 days. And that is truly astonishing. We know why. It is a very vibrant, very sociable, very graphic novel style battle royale. It's user friendly, it's very simple. The characters are very lovable, and also the mobility of them as well as the motion and special skills are very remarkable. They're easy to use, they're easy to apply, but at the end of the day the game does require a lot of thinking in terms of strategy, tactics, and most importantly the use of weapons. So for everyone who's jumping into the hot zone, I can tell you basically you're going to be killed really quickly right from the beginning. And if you are to be examining the systems that Respawn, the developer, introduced, you'd realize that your early kills are giving you very few points, less than 50 per kill, whilst if you're surviving for longer than 1 minute, you're getting 160 experience points. And so the survival rate is critical in terms of your experience points and leveling up. Indeed, if you're surviving 17, 18, 19, 25 minutes plus, and you have 5 or 6 kills in there, you will be getting very many XPs, of course, but the basis of those XPs will be on your survival rate. So very many people ask me during the first week, how come that you've gone so far? And I think I was already about level 45 or so within the first week. And I said, well, very simply, I survived for very long. I play stealth, and a lot of the times when doing the game with random players, they just do silly things and bail out quickly. They don't even wait for me to respawn them. And the difficulty there is you have to be readjusting to every single squad which has been made up by the game server. And if people make mistakes or do silly things, then evidently I have to be going there as a teammate to rescue them, and therefore I'm in danger, both the squad and the mission, everything else. And it's very infuriating. I've said in the first week there were fewer people of that sort coming in, but during the second week I had quite a few, particularly towards the end, so I got a bit frustrated. And what caused me frustration was not that somebody was making a mistake, but it was annoying to see that people didn't want to work in a team, and then they skived off to the area which was rife with enemies. They got killed instantly, and as soon as they were killed they bailed. So whether they didn't know that they had to be respawned and rescued, or whether they just didn't care, is a mystery. At most times I think people just didn't care because they were in for the kill and they wanted to get early scores, and obviously they couldn't get this. The game does have serious problems with the servers. If you are in an area which is serviced by one of the server hyping, I should say, very, very fast server, what you will experience is that your hit registration ratio is a lot better, and therefore when you're hitting the enemy may die very, very quickly. And in the UK we experienced it the other way around. In my team, which I've had steadily, we had situations where we would be hitting the enemy precisely with the best weapons quite a few times, 6 rounds on a sniper, or a couple of magazines on wingman or your automatic weapon, and the enemy would not even buckle. Whilst the enemy fired at us, we were instantly killed or indeed bleeding to death. So it did tell us that there were some serious issues in there. Nevertheless, a very, very good game, really good fun. proper PvP, very fast paced, you've got to be moving at all times. And you know, if you're in for very highly competitive scores and ratios, then obviously you will be very frustrated when things don't work out. But you're in for a lot of fun and entertainment, well, that's actually a terrific game to have. And I'm very glad to see that lots of my online friends, you know, online entrepreneurs, Twitch streamers, had also converted to Apex. And initially, like myself, they streamed Apex all the time, and then, you know, in the consecutive weeks they downsized a bit, because it's an ideal game as a respite. You know, you're doing Destiny, or you're doing Elder Scrolls, so you're doing any of those very, very big Anthem, you know, massive, big open world games, and you will have periods where there's a long grind and you want a bit of respite. In fact, one of our dedicated community members, Captain Jack, the other day came in and said, you know, I tried Anthem literally on the first day with a couple of my friends and we had a wonderful time. It was a perfect respite. Well, obviously Anthem is very compatible with Destiny. It's a very similar sort of game in terms of its open world and, you know, the warring factions in a distant universe, although otherwise I would say has no similarities with Server for my liking, although many people in online press were reporting it's just a Destiny ripoff, which is an utter nonsense. I think some people have a problem with BioWare or with Electronic Arts, they're just trying to come up with the dirt, and which is not relevant. In fact, I was reading a Eurogamer review today, and they did compliment the battles in Anthem, and they said they were very enjoyable when done in a team of 4, and that's exactly how they should be done, because the game was designed for these teams of 4 to be using all the javelin suits. You know, it was said from the word go that BioWare want people to be doing it in a cooperative team where 4 people with separate javelin suits will actually do action, and you will get extra content, you'll get extra loot. It's all been said many times for anyone who's been actually paying attention. But as you know, lots of people who are the scribes of such magazines are overstressed, underfunded, they don't go through some of the things as thoroughly as they should, and they should, because these are the AAA blockbusters of gaming. And, you know, they come up with some ideas which perhaps are not, I wouldn't say they aren't done false, but they aren't completely relevant to to the issue. And also they were complaining a lot about many other issues within the game as experienced, be it story missions related or the way you interact with your mates, you know, all kinds of things. I think it's premature. Maybe if they had if they set up some very high expectations or so, then they might have been disappointed. But you know, Anthem has been just launched. It's a massive game like Destiny, which is going to be both growing and evolving and carrying on bit by bit. So one has to be a bit patient, a bit focused, a bit resilient, and indeed with a bit of tender loving care for BioWare and the effort which they put into the game. The game is enormous, and it will take, you know, many weeks and months to be properly digested, and particularly when we start getting new content and new seasons and everything else as described, it is going to be absolutely astonishing. The game is sort of plagued by technical issues, and they're still not resolved. They're working very hard trying to get them done, so I think within about 2-3 weeks we are probably going to see fewer of those issues. And also after about 3 weeks, I think lots of people who were playing Anthem just for the story missions would have completed it, therefore the servers may not be as overloaded or under as much pressure as presently, and that will be obviously relieving us from many of those difficulties that become. That might be a bit of a strange throw today, really the whole day. So coming back to Apex, indeed it is going to be a respite after doing those long, lengthy and difficult Destiny grinds. As you know, most of my colleagues and online entrepreneurs, as well as hardcore Destiny veterans, are on Destiny 2 Forsaken grinds, and I'm completing Destiny 1 on all 3 characters, which also is a bit of a long grind, because when you come to 390 then it becomes difficult, and you have to be doing specific missions to get better quality loot that will give you some extra light points. I have level 40 on all 3 of my characters, but my light is between 390 and 395, so still quite a bit to grind there. Then we'll progress to Destiny 2, and we'll be coming back to do Destiny 1 strikes and the weekly missions and things that come in every week. So looks very exciting, and looks indeed very enjoyable. The trouble I had recently also was that after doing very lengthy streams I was a bit tired, and I think everyone who's an online entrepreneur has to keep this in mind and consider the fact that streaming has to be a lot of fun. If it becomes pressure or chore, then just forget about it. It's not going to work. And streaming is about connectivity, it is about communication, so doing solitary gaming is just no fun for me at all anymore. I just want everything to be in an open forum where people come in, discuss things, watch together, share their views, and make everything as enjoyable and sociable as possible. And that's obviously the bottom line. So coming back to some bits of news, I heard that The Walking Dead, the new installment, has been completely shelved now. We are not going to have it on PlayStation 4. They had decided to scrap it, and I think that there are some problems with the new developer that bought it off from the original company that was working on it. That went bankrupt, as you know, in Sweden. And that's a bit of a sad news, really, for everyone who likes, survival stroke horror games. But, it's just the news that we have today. And we'll have to see, what evolves from now on as far as the game is concerned. Probably the new developer is going to be brought in because obviously it's a franchise, a very popular game, and I'm sure that somebody is going to be embracing it. But coming back to my news, I was exploration and brief gameplay of five games per night on PlayStation Now services. And as you know, I'm a subscriber, like many other people. I use the service extensively, and there's a bit of a pitfall in there. When you're one of the subscribers, what happens is you really want to be playing as many games as possible, but many of those are quite lengthy, and if you're a streamer, you're focused on the games which you're streaming. So it does happen that at the end of the day, you're not really browsing through everything, you're not trying out different things. And I said to myself, well, actually, I'm going to do that every single day. 5 games I have a look at. I get a very, very good view on the gameplay. It's just the beginning to air, the aura, the atmosphere of any of those games. And yesterday I went to Pillars of Eternity, which I've never played before, and I've seen and heard a lot about it, particularly through PC forums, and I have to say it's a wonderful game. It does sort of feel like Diablo when you open it, but on the other hand, Dungeons and Dragons and Elder Scrolls come to mind instantly. Probably Elder Scrolls more than any other, because you can choose the way you want to play the game, and I've chosen the story mission, so the story to be the most important thing for me. So the input on the story is much greater than combat, and you get a lot of information, a lot of interesting characters, a lot of activity, but it does look and feel a bit like Diablo when you walk the characters, they go around, they explore different areas, and very, very beautifully designed game. And if I'm not mistaken, it was created through crowdfunding. I think 55,000 people supported the game, and therefore it became, fully developed, and that's truly wonderful. So Pillars of Eternity, very, very good. Then I looked at the Metro 2033 Redux. Absolutely terrific. The graphics, the atmosphere, the dialogue, everything there is just absolutely top-notch. So for anyone who's considering whether to play the new Metro, well, do engage with those 2 other games, Metro Last Light and 2033 in HD remastered. They're called Redux, and you will just love it. It'll be the best possible introduction for all that is to come with the latest installment, which also, I have to say, looks both vast and beautiful, and had very, very good reviews so far. Lots of people are playing it at the moment, so most highly recommend. I just loved it. I I like the games that have the atmosphere of that particular genre, and also for me it was quite. I need to clear my throat. Also for myself, it was quite a revelation in during the last decade, where Stalker, The Shadow of Chernobyl came out, because this was a game focused on the kind of a Russian-speaking world, and the characters in there were very much focused on the activities, in Ukraine, Chernobyl, and you had many different characters in there fighting for the domination of certain sections of the territory which has been obliterated by the nuclear war and many disasters. And I think Metro literally carries the beacon for such games, and carries it very, very successfully. It is a game which is very similar to Stalker in its dimension and selection of quests. Again, you are living underground, similar to, for instance, Fallout, but in a very different environment. Also, the Russian-speaking soldiers and characters are very funny and very engaging. They're very human as well. You really feel for them straight away when you get in. And the entire animation sequences and cinematics are just out of this world. So I just loved it. Absolutely spot on. Then I tried Battlefield Hardline, and I didn't really know quite what to expect. I never played the game before, but it has a very interesting, engaging opening where you are doing a drug raid by a local vice squad in Miami, and prior to that, I had like a prologue of one of the guys serving prison sentence, and he was, a former policeman detective. And it's really, very high-paced, very interesting, very good animation. And again, very atmospheric. Immediately, the first film that came to mind for me was Scarface, and that would have been the Brian De Palma version, with some of the characters that were hovering about, reminiscent of the De Palma Miami of that era, and definitely very, very interesting. And then I also tried, and actually played for quite a while, the Metal Gear Solid trilogy. So they have the prequel, which would take place in 1964. Then they have Metal Gear Solid 2, Sons of Liberty, and then Metal Gear Solid 3. And all of them have been also remastered and polished up for high quality consoles. And I have to say they look terrific. I did play Sons of Liberty on PlayStation 1, or was it PlayStation 2? PlayStation 2, I think it was. And I played the original Metal Gear Solid on PlayStation 1. And the remastered version obviously looked and sounded much better, and also they introduced certain things with dialogue and controls, which I think are very, very exciting. So thoroughly enjoyable, and again, for anybody who is in awe of those beautiful stealth games, you will know that Splinter Cell and Metal Gear Solid rate certainly to be the very best ones of that genre. So definitely, if you are a PS subscriber, have a look at those, indulge, engage, enjoy. I will be considering maybe a slot, which is going to be a weekly slot where games from PS Now are going to be introduced. I'm still working on the schedule. As you know, this is a new channel, and I'm really working on various means to which the channel can be fully operating throughout the week, on every single day, providing it with the best content. And I'm racking my brains a bit with it, because on one hand, the most successful channels on Twitch are those dedicated to one game in particular. But to be honest with you, I love the idea, and I've got Destiny as my main game here on my channel. But if you're doing it over a long period of time, and if you're doing it repetitively, it does become a bit of a long grind. And I want to enjoy every single thing that I do through my streaming, and I think certain degree of variety is necessary. So there could be a backbone or the base game for the channel, but then you also have other interesting content coming in, and that certainly is my intention. So far it worked very, very well, and I did stream other games in addition to Destiny, of course. I introduced PlayStation services. I had my regular news bulletins. I had games like Elder Scrolls introduced. We've had some of the golden oldies like Primal and Grim Fandango. We had Destiny 2 as well, and we obviously have Apex. So I'm still trying to work out maybe the schedule for. Maybe it will be a schedule similar to what you have on DCM or the movie channels, where you have certain slots during the week dedicated to a certain type of game, and maybe the streams then will be shorter but crisper, in fact, and focused on certain aspects of any of those games, and maybe different games on certain days. I know, poll on my Twitter, and I'll try to work out what the community really wants, what appears to be the best. And I certainly want to be dedicating my time to those games which are legendary and greatly enjoyable. Whenever you replay them, you feel like coming back to your old friends. And I do have quite a selection of those as well. The only trouble on PlayStation Now is that lots of those big, blockbuster games are not downloadable, which means I cannot stream them to Twitch unless they're obviously on my console. And I'll try to work out if there is another way of doing this, but presently I don't think there is, because obviously I'm streaming through PlayStation Now services, and that's about it. That can't be restreamed on the console as it stands today. If anybody knows any other method, then please email me or contact me directly. I'll be very, very glad to discuss it. I'm very interested and curious to see whether if there is one. But at the moment, as it stands, I was able to stream those games that are downloadable. The other ones, which are just simply streamable through PS Now, I could not do. So that's a bit of a deterrent as well, you know, because the idea is that you want to be freely sharing and engaging and bringing people in. And what better advert for any game or for any developer but to be able to see games being played live, and maybe not in their entirety, but you can play them in sections, and then obviously bring in additional interest from the viewers through interesting content. So let's have a look at our Apex. So these were the games which I've done yesterday on PlayStation Now: Pillars of Eternity, Metro 23 Redux, Metro Last Light Redux, Battlefield Hardline, Metal Gear Solid HD Collection, 3 games. And then on the night before we looked at a very, very nice, very engaging, very funny game, Rebel Galaxy, Sniper Elite 4, a top-notch also stealth shooter, The Last of Us, Mafia 3 and Fallout Las Vegas. Well, as you could see, we really are talking about 10 games, or 10 entities which really are the very top of PlayStation 4 gaming. So without further ado, as we looked at all of this, the time has come for us to do some battles in Apex. So let's just squad